Morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It appears that President Biden is in deep trouble, not just at the polls, but with some of his core voters, specifically Muslims and Arabs. We'll talk about that this morning. And Black and Latino students have long been underrepresented on Ivy League campuses as a whole, even when these colleges practice race conscious admissions. And now they have so many more challenges since the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action. We'll talk about that this morning as well. And the United States is one of few major countries that generally allow right turns at a red light. Well, slowly but surely, that's going away. And there's even new legislation in various jurisdictions that want to remove it altogether. We will discuss that this morning as well. And Missy Elliott rocked her way into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, bringing some real excitement to that otherwise mundane event over the weekend. She brought out the crew. She had everybody there. Flavor Flav was front and center with her, and of course Queen Latifah inducted her. Really exciting time for Missy Elliott to finally get the type of recognition she certainly deserves as the first Black female artist in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it's the 25th anniversary of Belly. Y'all remember Belly? Of course we do, because the one and only, our own Dr. Ben Chavis starred in that movie. We're going to talk about the 25th anniversary of hip-hop's seminal movie. All that with the guys. Austin is here. Barrington is supposed to be here, but we'll see. We will see.
Barrington will be here. Have faith. He'll be here.
What is he doing? I mean, it's too early to say he's napping. What is he up to, Austin? Come on, he was he praying?
Whatever it is, whatever Barrington is doing right now, it is profound, and it is for the betterment of humankind and womankind. And
Is
I'm
that
going to
right?
leave it at that. Yes.
Or is it for the betterment of Barrington kind?
Well, that too.
That too. It's so interesting because Power 96 mentioned before we went on the air that Donald Trump will commit perjury on the witness stand today. He's going to testify in his civil trial in New York. But here's the thing, Austin, as we go into our first story of the morning, even if he did, it has gotten to the point where it's becoming so what? And I say that because we see now, not that the polls and can always be trusted, but in all these battleground states, all of a sudden Trump is trouncing Joe Biden, right? Despite it being a situation where this guy, most people believe, caused so much havoc, gave even more rise to white supremacy and other hate. And now he's 4 indictments in, 91 felony counts, twice found responsible by a civil jury of sexually assaulting a female writer. His business has been judged by a judge to have committed fraud. He's on a fraud trial right now. Yet this guy is not, we always say, well, media always says he is the Republican front runner. He is officially the front runner for the 2024 presidency. And now, to compound matters, and the fact that it's unthinkable that someone of that, it's not like they don't have other choices, right? But it's unthinkable that someone with that resume can be so far ahead in the race for the presidency in the United States. We're not talking about a third world country, or are we?
Well, we are certainly going in that direction to becoming a third world country, dictatorship, if he is elected again. I'm old
He's
enough
laid it out.
to,
That's what it's gonna be.
exactly. I am old enough to remember I was in college when Ronald Reagan was first elected president. And during his 8 years in the White House, You will recall, Stacy, that his one of his nicknames was the Teflon president. Nothing stuck to him.
Yeah.
Iran Contra, just
Contra. Yeah.
nothing stuck to him. And if he was the Teflon president, Donald Trump is the Teflon president, Teflon candidate to the eighth power. Uh, I was in Dubai last week, and no fewer than 5 people, in meetings and in general conversation, said to me, "What has happened to America? What is happening to America? I mean, how can this? I mean, how can this be?" And I didn't have a good answer, and I don't have a good answer. All I know is 2024 is really going to be a test of our democracy. And
Well, it hasn't democracy been tested to the full now, and really, isn't it safe to say that
if
democracy is almost non-existent?
correct. But let him get in the White House again, and any shreds of American democracy that exist right now are going to be totally annihilated by him. And as you just referenced, he has basically, not basically, he has said publicly in more than one rally, in more rallies, in television interviews, that he is going to arrest his political opponents. He wants to arrest people formerly in his inner circle who testified against him. Think about this, and this is just one case you referenced. Special Counsel Jack Smith has 98 or 99 witnesses.
Hmm.
None of them are Democrats.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And here's the thing too. Among white women, his I mean, he is you. It's almost a clean sweep that white women are supporting him, and here's what I have to say to that. I'm gonna say something extremely unpopular. But if you can support someone like him, who when he was running, he said you can grab women
The private,
by the
yep.
private parts. He said that he would get away with shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, but he's been found responsible or guilty of sexual assaulting a woman.
Judge called him a rapist.
The judge called him a rapist. Don't talk to not to listen. Like I said, it's gonna be very unpopular. We might as well let R. Kelly out of prison. You might as well drop the stuff with this constant attack on Bill Cosby, this constant attack on Russell Simmons, this constant attack on this whole Me Too stuff of them going after folks. Because if you the guy that you're gonna support, and make no mistake, white women hijacked the Me Too movement,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And they really used it to hurt more black men than they did anybody else,
Yeah,
right?
and Stacey, the 3 men that you just referenced are black.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, white women are going to look after whites.
Yeah.
They are.
When it
You
comes
know,
to politics, absolutely.
exactly. I have always found white women to be some of the most disloyal and unpredictable segments of the Democratic Party, Republican and Democrat, but particularly the Democratic Party. One group of women who remain consistent in the Democratic column is black women. They made a difference in
Black women is not going to stand for that. They're not going to
no,
stand grab them
exactly,
by the private
exactly,
parts. They're not going to
exactly.
stand for, we saw it. I mentioned, so we referenced R. Kelly, we referenced Bill Cosby, we referenced who else did I reference? But we referenced these people. Black women was not standing for R. Kelly.
No,
They was
because
not standing for Bill Cosby. And in Cosby's case, the main thing with them, you cheating on this black queen, number one.
hmm
But
hmm
the white women voters, right? Trump has told them what he thought of them. Yeah, but it's so interesting that Me Too movement turned into a Karen moment, says Power 96.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's so interesting that I guess the point is you can't make complaints about these other things if you're supporting. You can't. You just if you don't like fire, you can't support somebody striking a match all the time.
Yeah, and you look at white women and this core of the Trump base, and you say, how do you go home at night? If you're a male, how do you look at your wife? How do you look at your children? Who, if you have a daughter, maybe when she's of age, she may want or need to have an abortion. Um, it's
Let
just
me tell you something. Trump, the way he looks at his daughter, she may need to have an abortion
exactly.
because it might be his child. Mike V says that white women voters did show up and show out when abortion was put on the ballot during the midterms. Yeah, it was a reaction to something that they couldn't change.
Yeah, yeah. And that abortion ruling was in June or July of last year.
Right.
So Mike makes a very valid point.
He
But
does.
will they still show up next November? We don't need folks to show up intermittently. We need folks to show up when it matters. And
Yeah,
next
they were
November it
able to
matters.
listen. They were allowed to vent a little frustration, a little anger, but
Mhm.
then now they will be put back
Then
in
they
their
move on to
place.
something else. Yeah.
They will be
You
sent back to the kitchen.
you will recall exactly. You will
These
recall
guys they're horrible.
yep, on January 21st, 2017, the Saturday, the day after Trump was sworn in. Stacey, you were probably there. There was a mass protest of women primarily downtown by the Capitol, really all across the United States and all across the world, protesting the election of Donald Trump being president. And I was there. And as I walked amongst those women, I couldn't help but ask myself, it's good that you're here the day after the man has been sworn in. And none of us at that time knew the damage that he was going to bring to the country during his 4 years in the White House. But I couldn't help but ask myself, how many of you all voted? Because if you didn't vote, your being here today really doesn't matter.
But you know what else is interesting? And it just occurred to me. I don't think it just occurred to me, but I was reminded just now. So we opened this segment. The story is President Biden, but who are we talking about? We're talking about Donald Trump,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
That is, I guess, another reason why this guy continues to win when it comes to these pollings.
Mhm.
Now, the story for Biden, another big problem for Biden is Arab and Muslim Americans who make up a small percentage of the population, but they have an outsized influence in battleground states like Michigan, where the rejection of voters who feel hurt and betrayed by the Biden administration might just cost Biden both the state and the general election. Michigan has more than 200,000 Muslim American voters, 146,000 of whom turned out to vote in 2020. That's a phenomenal percentage, Austin. 146,000 of the 200,000 turned out to vote, right? And they're saying unequivocally that they feel betrayed by Biden because of the situation in the Middle East. This as they put it, this blind support of Israel, and they're upset.
Yeah. And I, think understandably, so, you know, um, I guess I first started paying attention to politics really during the Ford administration. First learning about Watergate, then on to the Carter administration and those preceding. But I remember thinking, even in my younger days, why I was I was I was offended by it when American presidents always say, "We will defend the rights of Israel to defend itself at whatever cost." And I think that's wonderful. But what about Palestine? What
See,
about
and
the
this is
rights of Palestine to defend itself? And if I can, Stacey, you may
mhm.
I referenced, and I want to read from it, quote by former President Obama, who cautioned against ignoring. I'm reading directly here, the complexities of the Israel-Hamas war, warning that all of us are complicit, meaning the United States, meaning Palestine, but also meaning Israel. He goes on to say, if you want to solve the problem, then you have to take in the whole truth. And you then have to admit nobody's hands are clean, that all of us are complicit to some degree.
and so with that, Obama will now be canceled.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you
But
know and what he said, there's no lie in what he said. But this idea, so I even noticed that over the weekend, Vice President Kamala Harris was attacked because her stepdaughter uh, was all in for saying, "Hey, you know, the Palestinians are people too, and they
yes.
should cease fire." And and folks were getting all on her
Hmm. Hmm.
when her dad, the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, how
Hmm.
you say his name?
Hmm. Imhoff, I
Um,
believe.
he of course isn't he's Jewish,
Jewish. Yep.
and he has been front and center on America must support Israel.
Hmm. Hmm.
So and they're throwing all of this on the vice president. What her stepdaughter is doing. Oh, see, she supports the Palestinians. The vice president supports. They, her husband clearly supports Israel,
And so does the president.
and
And
so
look,
does the president.
I think what I mean, Hamas is a terrorist group. Their sole mission is to rid the world of Jews, which is just absolutely horrendous and disgusting. They are a terrorist group and need to be removed, just like ISIS and some of the other terrorist organizations and or cells. But so what happened on October 7th was horrendous, but I think that in these times and in this particular crisis, we have to remember that Palestinians are human people. They're human. Their grief and pain. Put it like this. There are grieving. Is there any difference in the grief of an Israeli mother who's lost her child due to a terrorist attack than a Palestinian mother who's lost her son or daughter to a terrorist attack? Pain is pain is pain. Grief is grief is grief. And I think that the U.S. Publicly and privately needs to be more balanced in how we talk about this issue. Joe Biden is not in a position to lose any votes, and Palestinian community, I think we're talking about Michigan here, was certainly influential in him carrying that state.
Yeah, and I mean, look, David Youngblood. I think he hit the nail on the head. He says the country does not allow moral equivalence on the Israel Hamas issue, and that has seemed to be the case because you've heard it from the beginning. When someone has rightfully condemned what Hamas did at that festival,
Yeah,
and
and
go on to say, um, you know, Israel must not attack kids or must not do this or call Israel out on something.
exactly,
It's a problem.
and to do so, as you just referenced, you're going to take serious political incoming. You joked, but President Obama, you said President Obama is going to be canceled
Hmm.
because of that interview. And even I forgot who he was, but someone who's a former staffer. I don't know how high up he was, but I was listening to him talk the other day, and he's Jewish, and he was offended by President Obama's comments in this interview. I mean, he did not go in and attack the president, but he said, "I think the president was just talking for a podcast, and he's wrong." It was a very dismissive kind of comment. And keep in mind that former President Jimmy Carter, who I think has been the most honest of all American presidents on
He certainly comes off that way, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah, on this issue. Wrote the book,
He did.
Palestine, Apartheid, Peace, Not Apartheid.
2006.
Hmm.
And he
And
even
he took
in recent,
incoming.
yeah, and even in recent time, he stood by that, so and then you hear the opposite. Like Hillary Clinton was pretty much um saying that what we keep hearing, that no, you cannot see. I'm paraphrasing her. Go back and look at her quotes, but essentially what she said was allow you can't allow for compassion in this case. Israel needs to do what Israel needs to do. And it's just this disregard.
To
I think Angela Connolly was
human
saying,
lives on the other
yeah,
side, on the other side, absolutely. And that has been how you paraphrase that had been, I think, to our detriment, the core of American policy. I forgot how much aid we give to Israel each year, a couple of billion, but it is significant. And every American president, every American president
mhm.
is afraid or very cautious when calling Israel out. I mean, call Israel out the same way you call out Palestine.
Yeah, well, David Ember says you can both believe what Hamas did was
Absolutely. Yep.
barbarism,
Yep.
while also believing what is happening now to Palestinians and for years violates international law.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
must distinguish, he says, between the state of Israel and the Jewish people, just as we must distinguish between Hamas and the Palestinian people.
Agreed. Agreed.
And
Agreed.
it becomes such a issue when someone attempts to do that. But just to close this segment out, again, going back to the president and his troubles, um, they did launch an ad campaign with HBCUs, talking about HBCU funding, which they dedicated about $25 million in an ad campaign to do that. But they need more than just uh, to show. They need to show what they have done for HBCUs, the unprecedented amount of support this administration has given to HBCUs. Yes, they have to do that, but at the same time, they have to highlight. So they have done so much, right? This administration, but most people don't know about it.
Yep.
It's
And
like
that's
it's like the typical Democrats we talk about in the House.
yep.
What they
And
do, you don't know about it. They
exactly.
don't. There's no real good PR on it.
And yesterday made exactly, if I got my dates right, 1 year from the date of the 2024 election. And the DNC and the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and all of our groups need to do a better job with messaging and getting the word out. We've got, just very quickly, going back to Donald Trump. You see how when he was president, he just kept on hammering home the same themes, even though they were lies. And you see how he does that in every interview and in every rally. We Democrats need to be the same way, hammering home those points, hammering home the success story of this administration. Not perfect, but certainly much better than the alternative.
Well, Mike V says they talking about the Democrats need a bumper sticker that is greater than hope and change and narrates their achievements.
Yep. And I would say this, to our Palestinian, brothers and sisters who are, again, in my opinion, rightfully upset with the Biden administration and are threatening not to go to the polls. Folks, do not go to the polls at your own risk. Do these Palestinians really think that the situation in the Middle East is going to get any better under Donald Trump?
Well,
No.
here's the other thing, Austin. Though they are looking for I think not just them, Muslims and the Arabs, they are looking for an alternative, and a lot of other people are looking for an alternative. And of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is pushing himself as an alternative. And in fact, I think he just the other day said that he's kind of backing off the whole vaccine conspiracy stuff, and he's probably doing that just for the sake of the campaign. His belief is going to be his belief, but even with him, there's been some traction his campaign has made, but certainly not enough to say that he is a serious contender to Trump and Biden. But I think people in general, voters, I should say, in general, they are desperate for an alternative.
Yeah, and the alternative we may get by not supporting Joe Biden is losing what little remnants of American democracy there is. President Biden, rightly or wrongly, well, rightly, but I think he had a hell of a record during his 4 years. I think that he had been certainly transformative on the domestic as well as the international front. Yeah, am I paying more for eggs than I would like? Absolutely. Yeah, am I paying more for gas? Absolutely, I pay more for gas than I want. So I get those everyday issues that are hurting Americans because I feel it too. I'm not wealthy like you and Barrington. It really impacts me.
I was going to say, he talked about the price of eggs, and trust me, Austin is an omelet man. He's an omelet man. But
Scrambled eggs right there in the kitchen.
but Power 96 says just maybe if more people read Black-owned newspapers and watch more Black journalists, they would know about some accomplishments of the Democrats. And I'll take it even further and shamelessly do it this way. If they would invest.
Yep. Mm-hmm. In our paper.
Advertise,
Get the word
sponsor, partner with Black-owned newspapers. I think they would be.
I mean, candidates, including President Obama, far too often take the Black vote for granted. To our detriment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's no question. Even with all the accomplishments, even with all of what this administration has done to make inroads, they still lack that partnership. That I will say this: I won't say they lack the partnership with the Black press, because some partnerships can be one-sided, right? But they certainly lack as far as putting their money where their mouth is. Sure, we've been treated by this administration, the Black press has, better than any administration in history.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But has this administration gone to the next level as far as opening up their wallets?
No administration has. And again, to our detriment. And what you're saying, Stacey, is this type of investment by the DNC and even the RNC,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm speaking specifically of the DNC because I'm Democrat. You will reap benefit, and this type of investment does not only need to be made in I guess we got 364 days between now and the election this year. It should be something ongoing. One point I remember of admiring the Obama administration, especially during the first term, was his campaign for re-election after winning in 2008, between the next election 2012. They kept a lot of offices in these battleground states for the specific purpose of letting folks know what the administration was doing, staying connected in a grassroots kind of way to constituents, to supporters. And I think that that's what the Biden administration should be doing. don't know what they're doing, but should be doing. And again, going back to the black press, what better way of reaching our people than
We
through the
have
paper that we read?
we
Paper that
have
we read.
we have, for instance, um, our midwinter conference coming up, right? And then the next year is the huge summer convention that's in Baltimore, of all places, next year at the Four Seasons, right? And we have these program books that our executive administrator Claudette Perry puts together every conference. Beautiful, glossy, beautiful, and folks can buy ads. If I'm Biden or the DNC, or even like you said, the RNC, or any candidate, you got a confluence of black owned newspapers and media companies, the leaders of these people coming together, right, for a conference. And they're gonna, and each of them gonna have these glossy books. I would have that full of ads.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's because you're gonna see all these black owned these black business leaders there. These
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
just it makes no sense that they have not done things like that.
And the candidates themselves should be there.
And the candidate, right? Exactly, exactly.
But you know that the thing is, common sense is not always common.
Yeah, that's so true. As Michelle Madison identifies you, Austin, as Barrington. She,
I, Michelle, I am honored. Thank you. That
he's
is,
nodded.
I am honored.
David Youngblood says we also need to hold our politicians, business people, entertainers, preachers, lawyers. David wants to hold everybody accountable for the notion the mainstream press is to go to platform for news. Let the black media break news in our newspapers and radio. 100%. I say it all the time. You know who I have problems with. I don't need to rehash it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's certain news, there's certain individuals who have to run to Gayle King, I ain't calling no names, or the New York Times or CNN when they feel like they got big news or whatever. These individuals, these entities I say this all the time, they can go to a high school newspaper and get the same type of attention because it's them, Jay-Z.
Mm-hmm.
This is them, Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
That people are going to pay attention. So you don't
Absolutely.
need to go and spend, a couple $100,000 in the ad in the New York Times. You don't need to go and go to CBS Mornings or Good Morning America or otherwise non-black owned entities to have the same effect that you want to get when you feel like you're doing yourself a favor by going to the New York Times or to CNN.
Yep.
There are certain individuals and entities, like I said, and look, Barack Obama certainly is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the grass is always greener, and their stuff is whatever.
Yeah, and one of the startling polls that came out, I guess it was the New York Times over the weekend, what talked about how Trump is ahead of President Biden in I think 5 of the 6 battleground states. Now, keep in mind, polls change, and a year out before the November 2012 election, that's what the poll said about Barack Obama. Well, we never had a president, President Romney, but we have the chance here to to make a difference.
And by the way, Angela Connolly says that is not Barrington. I haven't heard one cuss word yet.
and as Stacy and Greer know, I have no profanity ever comes out of my mouth. Why are you looking like that, Stacy?
Anyway, I have never had a shot of scotch in my life, if you believe that right there. I ride coach on Amtrak, if you believe that. So, Austin, Black and Latino students have long been underrepresented on Ivy League campuses as a whole, even when these colleges practice race conscious admission. So, when the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, effectively ended the systemic consideration or systematic consideration of race in the admissions process, experts sounded the alarm that enrollment at the elite colleges could drop for Black and Latino students. But African American students at Ivy League schools are concerned about a more nuanced shift. Admissions officers may be missing or ignoring the difference between descendants of enslaved people whose families have faced centuries of educational and economic racial disparities and Black immigrant families who still face racism but are likely to be less tied to generational economic hurdles that can make elite educations unobtainable. Austin, that's the new dilemma.
Yeah, and I purposely wanted to go to an HBCU, and I went to one in Raleigh, North Carolina, St. Augustine's University. And I purposely wanted to get my graduate degree from a white university, and I ended up going to Columbia. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that balance because I did not want anybody to be able to, with any credibility, question my academic capacity, my professional capabilities, etc. But I got into Columbia on an affirmative action program. That is the only way I got my master's in public administration from Columbia, and they covered my expenses during that 2-year program. I forgot what my tuition at St. Aug was $5,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
The tuition at that time at Columbia was 15,000 a year, some astronomical number that I knew that my parents, I could not ask them to support me. My desire to go to Columbia. I had 2 younger sisters, and so that's the only way I got into Columbia was through an affirmative action program. So it is disheartening. It is disconcerting to see these numbers, and this is all part of a master plan, of a strategic plan to keep Black folks down.
Well, it's so interesting that stat there. Even with affirmative action, Blacks and Hispanics are more underrepresented at top colleges than they were 35 years ago. So,
Mhm.
so again, sometimes, and I always like to say this: sometimes when you have such hate, you're blinded to other things, and I think the Supreme Court acted in a manner of hate, right? Thinking that they were going to finally drive a death knell for
Good.
Black students,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But what has happened? First of all, it's not going to have the effect that they had hoped, right? But not only that, but now you have attacks, and rightfully so, against those what you call it, admissions where the grandfather went to the school and gave all this
Hmm.
money. The father,
Hmm.
the rich folks.
A,
Uh,
a different definition of affirmative action, but affirmative
yes,
nonetheless.
yes. And so now that is because affirmative action has been struck down. That's next. You can't now uh, be given any type of priority or any type of favor because your rich dad or your rich mom or your rich uncle or granddad or grandma went to that school or gave $1 billion to the school.
I don't know, Stacy, that I agree with you respectfully that
But it's in the courts
that
now,
is
is what I'm
next.
saying. It's
Yeah,
in the courts
yeah, yeah.
now. And I forget what's the name of that. Somebody tell me the name of that. What do they call that? But but that's now going is making its way through the courts. And it eventually will wind up at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, in order to uh, uh, sh- disagree with that, they're going to have to reverse their affirmative action stand.
I don't
But
know.
they'll never do that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that the justice who will end up writing the the majority will be Uncle Clarence Thomas,
He'll
and we
find a
know
way.
what side he's going to come down on. I think that if it gets to the Supreme Court, despite the very clear likeness of both cases, I think that they will make a way to make an exception to, I guess you want to call it, generational affirmative action for
Legacy.
white folk. Legacy, that's right,
Legacy.
legacy. Yeah.
And then Power 96 jumps in with legacy as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, legacy emissions. Yeah. Well, but if you go in, if you base it off the affirmative action ruling, you would think that it would be impossible for them to continue to allow legacy to stand. But as you articulated, and you're probably right, once it gets there, they'll find a way around a
Exactly,
loophole.
exactly, exactly. I mean, you would think that any presidential candidate from either party facing criminal charges in 4 jurisdictions, 91 criminal charges, would not be a
Felony.
viable candidate for president of the United States. But he's going to get that. He's going to get that Republican nomination. So we're just dealing in uncharted territory and times unlike we've ever seen.
Yeah, Power 96 says the Ivy League does not want anyone there unless you are donating big money. Regular PWIs have Black student athletes to bring in revenue. I still choose HBCU any day. Just properly fund us.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
David says that he went to 2 HBCUs and 1 PWI. As long as we're talking about affirmative action as some kind of deserved benefit for unqualified people, we're on the losing end 100%, David. White folks are always 2 steps ahead on figuring out how to facially appear to be unbiased while denying you benefits they reserve for themselves.
And to show you the strength of our HBCUs, I was on campus at St. Aug in Raleigh for homecoming a month or so ago, and I was surprised to see, at least 6, maybe 8 white folks on the campus as full-time students at St. Aug. So
They're coming.
exactly, exactly.
They are coming. So Barrington, I'm seeing. I'm getting.
Everything around me, cream, get the money, dollar bill, yo.
I've been called Barrington verbally, and then in the chat. Today's going to be a good day.
It's going to be a good
Today's
day.
going to be a good day. What an honor.
So Austin, I'm sure you are grown used to, like many, the ability to turn right on red. Well, concerned that cars idling at stoplights could compound an energy crisis, the U.S. government warned states in the 1970s that they could risk some federal funding should cities prohibit right turn on reds, except in specific clearly marked areas. Although another energy conscious provision capping speed limits at 55 miles per hour has long been abandoned, right turns on red has endured. But a dramatic rise in accidents killing or injuring pedestrians and bicyclists has led to a myriad of policy and infrastructure change and moves to ban red light turns have drawn some of the most intense sentiments on both sides. Washington, D.C., for instance, the city council just last year, Austin, approved a right on red ban that takes effect in 2025. New Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's transition plan calls for restricting right turns on red. The college town of Ann Arbor in Michigan now prohibits right turns on red. More and more, we're seeing a stoppage of right turns on red. Is that a good policy, Austin?
Not to me. It says to me that we got too many people who should not be behind the wheel of a car, either texting or on the phone and not paying attention. It has nothing to do with the light being red. It has everything to do with the light being red, you making your right turn and making certain that there's no one in front of you. It's just that simple.
I see too many vehicles, too many motorists, I should say, who don't stop for the red light when they're making a right turn. I mean,
Mhm.
they just, and what do you do about that? And it looks like the solution is to eliminate the right turn on red. I don't want to see it go away either, but it seems like that unless you get strict enforcement.
Well, I mean, look, if you're going to go through a red light, you're going to go through a red light. Whether the sign is there saying, right turn or not. I mean, I see that with frequency too. I also see with frequency, the light is red and someone roll up on the side and just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
If I tried that, I would, cops will come at me from north, south, east, west. So, again, I like it. I'm by nature a very, cautious driver. My dad told me years ago, when you drive, you're not only driving for yourself, you're driving for others. So you have to somehow be in their cars as well. So if they, you say it's going to be banned here in DC in 2025,
25, yes.
I'll be, one of those who, sad to see it go, but I would just sit there with my right turn blinker on. And when the light turns green or give me the green signal, I will, lawfully make my turn. But there are going to still be those who would get to that red light and make a right turn, whether it's permissible to make a right turn or not. They're
Well,
going
it's
to
just
do it.
it's like the parent who keeps telling the child, do not eat the hot baked cookies before you have your dinner. Well, here's the solution to that. Stop baking the cookies until after dinner.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
what
yeah.
happens here is that folks are just not, then the law says after stopping, right? And making sure, because the folks with the green light, they still have the right of way. You do not have the right of way.
Exactly.
But too many, and I would venture as a guess to say at least 6, maybe even 7 out of 10 motorists just ignores that. Or maybe many of them, of that 6 or 7 that I estimate, maybe they just don't know. Maybe they feel like, okay, I'm going right, so I don't have to stop at all. But
But
the book says that
stop.
after stopping and making sure that it's clear.
That's just a basic element of driver's education. Green means go, yellow means caution, and red means stop. It doesn't mean stop halfway. It doesn't mean stop, and keep rolling through. It means come to a complete stop, and then you make your legal right turn. So I don't know that I don't know that this is going to make any difference or make any significant difference in the number of fatalities and or injuries by folks.
Like Mike V says, as someone who cycles to work, I need safe streets from radical drivers. And Power 96 says, I still do not turn right on red. Driving while black is a crime, especially in the deep South. And that's the other thing too, right? Like you said, you alluded to that too, Austin. It's like you make sure. We have a lot of reasons to make sure. And David says, in cities with bike lanes, right turns are deadly. Yeah, the advent of all these bike lanes too has made that even more of a risky proposition.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly agree with that. When I'm even more cautious when I see the bike lane to my to my right. Hell, I'm cautious when I open my door to get out, just to make certain that no one slams into me.
Yeah.
And certainly making a right turn. I stop and I make certain that no one is approaching me.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Austin, you mentioned the red light, green light, and yellow light. How does that work when you're on a date? Let's move on. I mean, you got to know the stop signs.
Exactly.
Know the go sign.
Exactly.
You got to know when to yield.
Yeah. Well, Trump, when it comes to dating, only sees green.
Despite all that red in front of him, huh?
Exactly.
Sheryl Crow, Olivia Rodrigo, and others kicked off the 2023 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony last Friday night, and Missy Elliott was the star of the night. Closed the show more than 4 hours after it opened with a roof-shaking set as the hall celebrated a strong representation of women and Black artists. Shaka Khan, Kate Bush, Soul Train creator Don Cornelius, the Spinners. In fact, New Edition did an amazing tribute to the Spinners. I mean, they had it down. They had the Spinners moves
Really?
and everything down to a science. DJ Kool Herc was also inducted in a celebration of funk, art, rock, R&B, and hip hop, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary. As we well know, country music was represented by Willie Nelson. Punk had Rage Against the Machine, the late George Michael, and
that's right. George Michael is gone. I forgot. Wow.
You forgot.
That's right.
Yeah, what a shame. The ceremony's strong representation of Black and women artists, though, is so ironic, Austin, because it comes not long after the Hall of Fame removed its co-founder, Jan Wenner, from its board of directors. You remember Jan Wenner, who also co-founded Rolling Stone magazine, had said that Black and female musicians, quote, didn't articulate at the level of the white musicians featured in his new book of interviews. And of course, some of the artists used some of the stage time last night to really put him in his place. Queen Latifah was there. She introduced Missy Elliott, who became the first female hip hop artist in the Rock Hall of Fame, smashing the boundaries of fashion and style along the way. Latifah said nothing sounded the same after Missy came onto the scene. She is avant-garde without even trying. She then appeared, Missy did, appeared on stage. It took place at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And she came on stage after beamed from a spaceship.
Wow.
With smoke machines pumping and a kinetic light show and a massive digital screen working overtime. She performed Get Your Freak On, The Rain, Super Duper Fly, Work It, Pass That Dutch, and Lose Control.
Wow.
In other words, it was the Missy Elliott show Friday night in Brooklyn at the Rock and Roll.
But I have to watch a replay. But it looks exciting, and congratulations to all of the inductees. Long overdue for each of them.
Yeah, she became such an innovator. She became someone that everybody wanted to work with, and still do. It's just amazing. My older sister loved herself some Missy Elliott, and in the earlier days I just couldn't understand it. But then she just, as Missy continued on making her own music, producing other people's music, you could see why.
You have a look at these, these artists. Sometimes I do, and I say, they've got more, creativity in their pinky than I do in my entire body. And I'm a big guy. I mean, you look at Missy Elliott, Prince, Michael Jackson, some of the other giants. I was listening to some of Michael's music over the weekend, and then I was driving and listening to what's the station, XM radio, Heart and Soul, and some of that music just never gets old.
It never gets old. Yeah,
never gets old.
Somebody was talking about, and we talked about this too, but just over the weekend, somebody mentioned like Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," how appropriate it is today. Music is it's so interesting. Some like Missy Elliott, like Missy Elliott, for instance. Her music is relevant today. It'll be relevant in 5 years. It'll be relevant
when we're no longer
here. It's
here.
only a handful, though. There's a lot of music we hear that we wouldn't miss it if we don't hear it again.
I'll be fine. You remember the Osmond brothers or Donny Osmond?
Oh gosh!
If I don't hear another song for the rest of my life, I'm good. And I don't think I've heard any of their music.
I used to always believe that him and Marie had a weird relationship, a brother and sister.
You mean like Trump and Ivanka?
Like Trump and Ivanka. I to this day I still believe that Donnie and Marie I still believe there was something amiss. With
Something
all
not
the
quite right.
Osmond, it was all of the Osmonds, right? I mean, I'm close to my youngest sister, but they,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just seems so, backwoods type mentality that, trailer, that stereotypical trailer park backwoods,
West Virginia
West
mountains.
Virginia type thing up in the
Hmm.
mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been the and you said this, not me, Stacy, but that might be what was behind that song of the Osmonds, "One Bad Apple."
Power 96 said Donnie Marie had a few Uncle Nepsons. I just was always, not I never knew them. I never met Donnie. I never met neither Donnie or Marie. I think I met Donnie. I never met Marie. But I never knew him. But it's just I felt
Something was off. Something was off.
uncomfortable. Remember
Mhm.
they made me uncomfortable. It wasn't, because they gave you Sonny and Cher vibes on their show, and
Mhm,
Sonny and
mhm.
Cher were married.
And didn't they have their own variety show like Sonny and
That's what I'm
Cher?
saying.
Wasn't there like
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah. And it was like,
Forgot
where was the
about
rest of
that.
the family? It was like Elle and Bunny without the rest of the barge. You don't do that. Come on. Come on. The Jacksons did they show. It was the whole family,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It wasn't just, Michael and Randy.
How did the Jacksons tour do after Michael? It's like I could not ever see
So,
myself going to see
yeah,
the
the
Jackson
thing
Five or
about
the
I was
Jacksons
very
without
happy.
Michael.
I was very happy for them, but I also was very sad for them when after he died, and a couple of years after he died, they decided to go on tour. The brothers did, and then they couldn't keep it together because now
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got just two of the brothers,
Family and Fire.
Jackie and Marlon, performing with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but they could never get along enough to go on tour. But I just remember, we were at one time extremely close. And I just remember back in the 90s for certain pushing, why don't you do this? You don't need Michael to go on tour
That's
to,
right.
it was like, go do your own thing. Cause my thought was that eventually, Michael would join them. But if he didn't, there was this anticipation. There would have been this anticipation. If you guys go, you would sell out because the fans would always hold out hope that this will be the show Michael shows up.
Michael shows up at yeah.
And then they wait until he died. And listen, it sounds like a knock. I don't intend it as a knock, but they became irrelevant after him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The cachet was while he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's just chance. If I go buy tickets to see Jermaine and Tito and Jackie and Marlon and Randy, Michael might show up. But they, who was I? They didn't take my,
Yeah.
but they would always talk about it. Oh, you're right. I heard, you talk to people that you care about and you hear a lot. Oh, you're right. And that's all I kept hearing. Jackie, Jermaine. Oh, Stacey, you're right. It just, but it was empty. And then they did it after he died.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and look, we talked about the Victory Tour last week, and it was like the greatest thing you'd see. Especially, there is no other family concert that could ever top the Victory Tour. Not in my book.
That's right. I went here in DC.
Yeah.
Listen,
I said it last week. I've always said it. Great shows that Michael put on, but the better show for me was Michael and his brothers.
Yeah, that was great.
That was the better show. So speaking of shows, Dr. Chavis would be happy if he's watching. I'm sorry. Maybe he had a little drink or something to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Belly. You remember that film, like Friday, like Boys in the Hood, Paid in Full. It's among the very few iconic titles in its category. And when Belly came out in 1998, people just thought, oh man, who was in it? But it was Hype Williams who directed the film. And the opening is what got people talking, because it was just unreal. People talked about that opening scene so much because it was like a music video, but it was just done so amazing. You know, you had DMX and Nas um, doing their thing. T-Boz was in it. You just name it.
Hmm.
They were there for that movie. And of course, Dr. Chavis had that iconic scene with DMX. I was with, I always tell this story, Dr. Chavis, everywhere we go, it's like, you know, Dr. Chavis, of course, this civil rights icon, this Wilmington 10
Yep.
member,
Yep. Yep.
former NAACP president.
Legend. Hmm.
Right. But we're in Brooklyn, and these young guys come running up, and these young black guys, they probably 18, 19 years old. Oh, wow. You the dude from Belly. I'm
Wow.
thinking, this guy led the Million Man March. This guy was a Wilmington 10 member. He
Well,
was, you know, he
that's where
worked
they
under
know him
Dr.
from.
King.
Exactly.
But they
Exactly.
know Belly. They know him
Yep.
from Belly.
Hmm.
It's like, wow. But 25 years old is Belly.
That's incredible
That is,
how timing, and I remember that scene with him. So, happy anniversary and congratulations, Doc. Keep doing what you do.
yeah. Yeah, and even homegirl from what's her name? Terrell Hicks was in that movie. You remember Terrell Hicks? She was from A Bronx Tale.
I've forgotten that. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yep. Method Man
I
was
remember
in it.
Method Man. Yep.
Sean Paul, Ghostface Killer. It's like they just brought in everybody for that movie. But there's that scene. Look, Doc got that face on.
You got that face. that serious Malcolm look. Yep.
Belly, 25
5
years.
years.
So
Incredible.
congratulations to Hype Williams, to even Kurt Loder from MTV News was in Belly.
Remember how big MTV used to be?
Oh God, MTV News too. Everybody used to watch MTV
Yeah.
News.
Do they still have have their office or in Times Square?
So they still have the Paramount offices. My wife used to work there.
Okay.
And they still have their offices in the same spot. And of course, Paramount has taken over MTV, so it doesn't say MTV outside; it says Paramount Plus.
Yeah, yeah. Remember how
But
folks used to be gathered outside in Times Square,
yep,
and before or after the interview, some of the celebrities would come to the
yep,
window and look down and wave, and the crowd
yeah,
would
and then
erupt.
yeah, exactly. And then at some point later on, they moved the interviews outside,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be on this
Mm-hmm.
riser
Yeah,
right
yeah,
outside the
yeah.
building.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really
And you only had one or two entrances to get into that building. So
that was it.
that was it. So
That
if
was
you
it.
just stood there, at some point they want to come in, and
And
at
come
some
out.
point they got to leave. So get your photos, get your autographs.
Yep. That was again, things have changed dramatically.
Yes.
You were talking beforehand. We were talking about Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, and how different news is today,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and even that stuff what we're talking about now with MTV. Just saying the name Kurt Loder makes me feel old.
Yep.
The MTV News. Oh wow! One day,
One day.
people are going to say saying our names is going to make them feel old. Austin.
Yep. I'm already hearing it.
You
I
already
was
hearing?
going in. It's happening with more frequency, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I was going into Target the other day and opened the door, and someone said, "Thank you, Pops." I'm like, Jesus, thank you, Pops. And he wasn't being, wasn't being insulting. I'm just like, wow, someone's calling me Pops. I'm like,
I love how Greg
and they
put
call
the
me OG. I'm like, really?
OG. Wow.
Wow.
I love how she put the Walter Cronkite video up right at that moment because it was like superimposed over you. And
Exactly.
I was like, wow. I
The
can see
great Walter Cronkite.
Austin doing all that's exactly how you would anchor the news too.
Exactly. Take off my glasses.
Yes. That is
That's
awesome.
Yep. And that's the way it is.
And that's the way it is. Thanks a whole lot. Listen, we got we got a lot coming up this week. We will be in Sacramento, California later this week, the 60th anniversary of the Sacramento Observer. Congratulations to Larry Lee and the whole Observer family, who, by the way, this past summer, I should say, swept the awards, the NMPA Merit Awards, Newspaper of the Year, Publisher of the Year, et cetera, et cetera. And now they're celebrating their 60th year. Next year, the Washington Informer celebrates.
Absolutely.
Oh boy,
years next October.
Yeah, and in a couple more years, it'll be 200 years of the Black press. So listen, we talked earlier. Before we go, we got to say this, Austin. We talked earlier about the book for the Midwinter Conference and the book for the Summer Convention for the Black press. Folks, y'all better get in line now. Start buying some sponsorships and stuff for this show and for the NMPA for the 200th anniversary of the Black press. Now that better be the celebration of all celebrations.
Absolutely.
From January 1st all the way until midnight, December 31st. The scotch it's got to be pouring all year long. Yep. Although Greer be like, you can't drink before the show. You be imposing these things,
the
Austin.
Nor during the show.
Now we haven't negotiated that part yet.
Uh-oh.
But join us though this week, and again we'll be in Sacramento beginning Thursday. Actually, we'll be in Sacramento. So congratulations to the Sacramento Observer, and Austin, Stacey, congratulations to you for being called Pops.
Thank you. And can I sign off for us?
Absolutely.
This is Stacey Brown and Barrington Simon signing off.
You're supposed to say that's the way it is.